Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Data Engineering Weekly podcast, or should we call this a Dewcast? It's been a long time since we talk, but yeah, I mean, after the successful launch of DuCon, then we've been traveling all around, and then finally we get a chance. So great to be joined with Ashwin again to talk about more on Data Engineering Weekly.
Hey, thanks, Ananth. And it's like Ananth said, it's great to be back. A lot of travel, a lot of learning across the globe. And I think we would be more regular on the podcast. We'd also bring some leaders and practitioners into the podcast as we go into 2024. Stay tuned for that. But for today, we want to go back to our original format, discuss the key topics that we've liked on the Data Engineering Weekly. And one of the latest blogs that Anand had written on the 26th of November is what we are going to discuss, talking about the key trends and patterns we observed in 2023, and probably dive a little bit detailed in terms of how each of these has affected us, and how it works in 2023 and how it's going to impact in 2024. Three or four major topics, right? We would like to add that not everything is fit for everyone. So your organization could be in a different maturity model. We would discuss around the maturity model to start off with. Go on into the most important buzzword in the market, right? I think not any conversation goes for me in every meeting that I have, and considering I have 3 or 4 meetings per day, none of the conversations end without Gen AI or OpenAI. So we would start with impact of AI and large language models that we have seen in 2023. We'll also discuss around how it is going to evolve in 2024. The second topic, I think for me and Anand, I think Anand has basically written my mind or my meeting notes, right? The second important topic that I take away from most of my meetings from my job is around lakehouses. And migration to lakehouses is what I usually end up discussing with my customers or partners. The second topic is around the battle for supremacy inside the Fierce Lakehouse architecture. We would talk about uh, some of the open table formats. There's another podcast that we have completely covered that in detail. We'll give the links when we put the description and the meta here, so you can definitely discuss. We can look into that. The third one, I think it's Anand's favorite topic, right? The rise and fall of the modern data stack. He's been raising some skepticism for quite some time, I think early this year onwards. So we would quickly discuss on that as well. Last but not the least, this whole Express from Amazon. We would discuss around Amazon Express One, the impact of Amazon Express One, also in combination with Lakehouse architecture as well. Last but not the least, streaming is never going to go away. I think we would see a lot more streaming architectures. And I think a quick discussion around how Apache Flink. I think Flink has been a hit or miss over the last couple of years. I think I want to take Anand's viewpoint on Flink and how it's winning the streaming wars. Like Anand, let's dive deep in. I wanted to take your thoughts around the maturity model that you have put in, right? So, thoughts on that?
Yeah, totally. I think whenever we are talking about all those trends and buzzwords in the industry, it is absolutely critical for us to kind of see what fits for us and what doesn't fit for us. Every company is in a very different maturity level, and whenever we look into or evaluating a new technology or a buzzword, it's absolutely critical for us to see what is the current state of our ecosystem and then what we can do out of it. So the maturity model in this in the article being published, it came from the Meta that published about the maturity model, the way they think about it, all the way from set up a basic data infrastructures to building the data foundations to make the data accessible. So at a different stage, different conceptual data, different data concepts or the tools or the approaches, whether you are taking a data mesh or a data contract and like all sort of modern data stacks, all sort of philosophical approach of clubbing together will get applied. So don't get carried away with all the buzzwords. Like look inwards and map where you are in your journey, and then try to see from here what is the next level I can go and what can really help you. Take one step at a time. That's what will make your architecture much more efficient and serve your stakeholders' need. Uh, that's
That's a great summary, Anand. I think I use this analogy quite often in my meetings. I think nothing has changed in the data world for the last 20-25 years. We have improved the processing capacity so we can take decisions quicker. But I think it's just been an evolution of the Kimball model or the warehouse model, right? I think we have evolved, but I think the foundational architecture, I think that base maturity model, which says, hey, set up your base infrastructure, build your data foundation, and then make data accessible. I think drive consumption, I think, or drive insights out of the data that you're storing, you're processing. I think those three buckets by large, and what you use in that, like Anand said, don't get influenced, don't get carried away with what's happening around the buzzwords. Focus on the foundations, build a very strong, robust data infrastructure, govern them, and I think make data accessible and usable in your organization. I think you would find out a better fit tooling stack as you evolve in that maturity stack. I think great thoughts on that, Anand.
awesome. So
Perfect.
yeah,
Let me, yeah, any thoughts?
yeah. I mean, you mentioned about like all the talks kind of ended without end, like all the conversation not ending without OpenAI.
Gen
So
Oh
I'm
yeah,
curious
I mean,
about.
nothing for me. I can tell you, nothing for me. Everyone is interested in that.
So I'm curious, like,
What are
what do
you
you see the
doing?
pattern? Yeah, what do you see the pattern on that?
See, I think two things, right? One, people in general want to understand what are we doing there as a company, and two, they want to understand how's the market, the data market, particularly the data management market, going to evolve around or use Gen AI. Let me quote some examples, right? Or asks from the field. Number one, can I do ETL without writing ETL? Can
Mhm.
I identify data quality problems and fix it automatically without having to go through circus or a complete loop in the organization? That's been an ask. I think in the catalog world, automatic documentation and automatic lineage, I think those has been consistent over the period of year. But then they want automation as much as possible, because when you put humans to the problem of catalog, they don't do anything. I mean, they rarely worry about all of this. So I think those are conversations that I've been having. Automate everything, reduce the footprint in terms of cost. Those are things that I'm hearing consistently from the market. I know one of the guys recently won a project where it involves application of OpenAI or large language models to reduce 30% of the data engineering workloads.
Mhm.
Not sure what they're going to figure out, etc. In the project, it's in an early discovery stage, but I think leveraging LLMs, I think LLMs, OpenAI may be the buzzwords here, but I think leveraging AI foundationally as part of every workflow that we do, I think that's been my set of feedback that I'm receiving from customers and partners on the ground. Uh, what are your bets here?
I think, yeah, for me, like all those LLM buzzwords and all those things, I kind of try to see how it can change the data infrastructure landscape and what tools can really provide. And I rightly mentioned about data catalog, for example. Um, if data catalog can automatically generate all the documentation and the human don't need to write any documentation, then what is the need for a data catalog? So um, you still need to do a search and discovery, but my question again from data catalog, like is it a right place and tool to search? Should it be part of the query engine that where you actually need in the need for searching something, right? So I think what I'm really interested to see is that how far the LLM will impact or automate or make it absolute some of the data tools, or
Yeah.
not everything, but some of the data tools. Um, I think there are a lot of attempt already in the market, right? Like There's text to SQL. There is even a Stanford NLP project around, like, can I directly create a bytecode instead of text to SQL? Can I just create and execute all the way through the end? And just why, Databricks launched the English SDK for Spot, which is still another transfer. Right now, the way the people are experimenting is like, okay, I have this, I have this abstract layer, which is a SQL or a Spark, and you write some natural language, I'll try to convert that into an abstract layer and then execute it, leverage the existing system. I wonder, like, at what point people will say that, okay, I don't want to, transfer that anything into an intermediate layer, and I wanted to directly execute that, create a machine level machine code, and then execute from there on. I think that's where the more interesting optimization will come and more interesting, tools and interfaces will emerge. And I'm really interested to see how that can change the human interaction. As a if you take a step back and say, like, human to computer interaction, chat is one of the very familiar interface
Yes.
all the time uses. So it is not the new user behavior that you are bringing in. SQL is a natural way. This is a very high, natural way to people to interact. And at what point it will kind of emerge. That's one pattern I'm really excited to see that on the human to machine interface side of it. And the second thing I really wanted to see how the architecture evolve is like, especially around the lake houses, right? Um, all the vector models that is like, all the LLM models that we are kind of building it. Um, can this lakehouse automatically create that and store it and make it easy for us to people to search? The same way that, how the relational model works. Now you create this table, you build this metadata, all the data warehouses come with the catalogs, and then you define your catalog and then enable the SQL to access that. So SQL and relational model works. And we know, like, I don't know exact what percentage, but like there are a lot of unstructured and semi-structured data being created all the time. And can that relational model of data storage goes away and some kind of a natural language way of storing the data, like, much more,
I think the convergence of structured and unstructured is another thing that the lake houses have to evolve to handle it. We are still dealing with largely structured, semi-structured data in the lake houses. As much as we want unstructured data, I think the use cases are not mature, in at least in my observation. But before we segue into lake houses, which is definitely the next topic, one thing that I'm observing in the LLM space is a lot of categories within the data space is going to be redefined. Some may be questionable in the new evolving LLM architecture, LLM landscape, right? Whatever you want to call that. And I think we would see that evolve over the next couple of years. And some of them may not even be relevant, right? I think this overall question around, is BI going to be still around? Is dashboarding still going to be still around? Is a question that I want the listeners to answer. Uh, I don't want to form perspectives right now. I think it's too early for us to form any of that. But whoever is listening, you should definitely add your comments. We want to learn from you and take your comments and probably highlight that in an upcoming podcast as well.
right.
And that's a good segue to the lake houses.
Yeah, I just want to quickly touch base on the data, the dashboard, right? I do believe dashboard will exist. The reason is dashboard is a way for one human telling the other human that this is a way you should see the data that I'm seeing. That hierarchy will not go away in an organization. So there has to be some form of communication, that a representative communication, which is a pictorial representation of a communication, like a similar to map or world map or any other things. That layer will not. That layer will be still there. The question essentially, like, which layer will create that, the communication pattern is what really confusing.
I think, yeah, since you're still on that topic, I think Frank Slootman basically says the same. I think he
Same,
agrees.
yeah.
I think there's a recent interview or a podcast where he has spoken about whether BI would be dead. BI would not be dead because, like Anand said, it gives a structured thinking into the organization, like annual report. Will your annual report go away? No, right? So companies still have to publish annual report in a particular format, in a particular sequence, because our brains are tuned to identify and make judgments based on that data. And dashboards are an effective way of driving that structured thinking across an organization. So yeah, so Anand gave you the answer, but then we want to still hear from you, right? Again, we don't want it to be beyond a certain time. So let's quickly segue into the lake houses, which is a topic that we've been betting on that for quite a number of months right now, through 2023. Uh, but let me ask Anand, because he's written one more blog around it. Uh, Amazon S3 Express. I'm going to bring that topic here, Anand. How do you see that impacting Lakehouse's architecture? Are these even relevant? Meaning, and how do you think that it's going to accelerate the Lakehouse adoption, if you believe
I-
so?
I'm very upbeat about Amazon, the AWS Express announcement there. I think what are the things have been changed? Like last 2, 3 years, what do we see? A lot of the concept of building S3 as a database is not a new concept, right? Like we started the data lake concept essentially like, oh, dump object storage is cheap, you dump everything and all those things. We far away removed from the relational model in the data lake, and this lakehouse architectures came and say like, hey, you know what? You can define your structure here, and you can also support like AZ transaction. Like we fully support AZ transaction. The storage and compute is decoupled. It's in the object storage, nothing changed. Still cheaper for you to do that, and add this AZ compliance there. But it is still batch, still slow. What is happening in the data processing pipeline is that even the Netflix recently published their summits, and they talked about the incremental data pipelining, how they're processing, how they listen to new S3 files coming in and immediately process it or parallelize their process and all sort of a thing. So the only way for I believe the only way to scale the data processing pipeline to much more faster and reduce the latency is by using the incremental data processing. Is it compliance with strong incremental processing in a much more quicker incremental processing to create more and more materialized view out of the source data, very much easier way. I believe that is the fear. That is how all the data programming model going to be looks like. Right now we do like a hourly partition or a daily partition kind of a model. I believe it will go like even faster. Now, if we had to go even faster and then process the files much faster, the only option right now is the streaming pipelines like Flink and all those sort of things. And that's an expensive infrastructure to operate on its own. That's why many people are contained with a batch, not goes to real time. The ability to ingest in real time, the ability to subsequent latency read from S3, it'll dramatically reduce the total cost of ownership to adopt the incremental data processing and reduce the latency.
Totally, Anand. I think there are very few announcements that have excited me in reInvent, and I think Express One has been one of them. Looking forward to see its adoption now. While I have come back from reInvent, it's been close to 3-4 weeks now. I don't see anybody super excited or implementing S3 Express already, or even talking about it. But hoping to see more adoption and usage of Express One very soon, very soon. But even on the lake houses, I know uh, the Hoodie team and One House in particular have launched a one table, right? What are your thoughts on that, Anand? How do you see one table bridging uh, the open table format, different formats, and are they trying to bring in a level of interoperability? What's your feedback on one table?
I have not tried one table in the practical terms, but from a very theoretical perspective, right? Um, the interoperability among all the data lakes formats will be absolutely critical. A company can acquire another company, or a different function might choose a different format. It's absolutely critical to make sure that the interoperability among those data ecosystem seamless there. I mean, of all likes and dislike, what we got. I've been deeply thinking about the same topic like a week back. I'm glad you asked this question. When the data lake came, one thing that really amazing is the high meta store. Regardless of you like high meta store or don't like
Yeah,
that.
correct. I think yeah, High Metastore was the breakthrough for us in the Hadoop world also, by the way.
Yeah, what it does that it creates a one common metadata layer, like one format for all the data processing engines to accept, and understand. What it brings to the table is the floating of so many data processing tools, from Apache Spark, Pick, Crunch, you name it. Like there's so many data processing tools in available, and then so many trying to optimize things. Now, what happened after that? We slowly get out of Hive and like a Snowflake model that we went and Redshift and all cloud data warehouse and each and every lake or format. If you see, there is less people innovating on the data processing layer. I recently
Yeah.
asked a question in the Twitter channel is about Twitter about hey, why there is no alternative Spark? The reason is the barrier to entry we increased. And that's one of the reason why I like one table format is, or the concept like one table format, which I'm hoping that it will kick the data processing layer innovation more, uh, which
Yeah.
is so
Totally. I think, yeah, there needs to be some standardization over there as well, right? I think under the hood, it may all be different formats of Parquet, right? But then I think interoperability is key. And as we have more processing engines come up or access layers come up, I think that kind of gives customers who are consuming these different open table formats or lakehouses um, a seamless experience to onboard and consume data and reducing the friction to consume it. Right. So, for example, Iceberg over DuckDB is possible today. And I think there needs to be more innovation on that particular layer. Like we was talking the other day, DuckDB still is single node, single infrastructure. I can't have DuckDB on MPP, but I think the lot more innovation that needs to happen on the Lakehouse architecture. So helping all of us create something that's going to be future proofing for a lot of data works that we will have to do. Otherwise, every 2 or 3 years, we are completely rewriting and revamping the architecture, hoping for a better future.
Mhm. Yeah, totally.
Perfect. And that's again a good segue into revamping and rebuilding is what we spoke about. And I think one of the topics that we hear quite often is the modern data stack and how modern data stack is already dead or is in the process of dying. Thoughts on that, Anand? Because you've written a lot of it, a lot of articles, a lot of tweets around it. But I want to take your viewpoints before I share mine on this particular one.
Yeah, I mean, the modern data stack is a very interesting philosophy, right? Like it says like, okay, you take the best of the breed and then you integrate that and create a best in class data platform. That's a fundamental principle behind that. You get data catalog, who is the best catalog data catalog provider, get it. You get observability, who is the best observability provider, we get like who is what, right? So you just bring everyone into one layer and then integrating things and do that one. But as it and I often seen like this kind of compared to Unix. The problem is there is two problems with the modern data stack. I feel like one is like the integration cost is pretty high, and in a very business driven and a growth driven market, everyone wanted to eat their own pie, right? They don't want to share it somebody. They want to expand the pie because growth is the only way that you can keep your stakeholders happy. So it's very easy for one person to step into another person. My data
Totally.
data catalog can be data observability. Observability can be data catalog, and then it could be data lineage. Like the category overlapping will be always there.
Yeah.
So one finite category that you can define, and he is the player, and there are the players that you cannot divide that. And when that happens, um, there is no like the interoperability die. Nobody wanted to open the
Correct.
private to them, right? So that is a critical point. I would say like why the concept is will not fly. At the same time, the second thing I'm thinking like modern data stack may resurface. See, the whole modern data stack is kind of explode in the kind of zero interest phenomena, right?
Correct.
Like
Yeah,
fully available, you can create a short, and it's easy for the investors because you're trying to solve a very small problem and a very fine segment, easy to get fund and all sort
correct.
of.
And any customer who has that problem is going to listen to you
Yeah,
or buy your product, right? I think getting the attention of the users was a lot more simpler and easier in the modern data stack, right? So let's say if it was just getting my data inside, I had two or three choices. If I
right.
was doing streaming, another three choices. So I think it was good in a way, but then more companies coming in, as you rightly said, stepping on each other's toes was imminent because they didn't have enough to grow linearly on one product line that they had.
Mhm.
And every customer that they were talking to about was like, hey, you do ingestion, but no transformation. So transformation was DBT. So you do this, but then you still don't help me with the lineage. So you
Mhm.
had to talk to 10 different vendors to build a bare metal architecture for data projects. Not even considering data science or advanced machine learning. So this is like a bare metal data team who was not focused, right? So I think uh, MDS did its job in driving hyper specialization in each of these product categories, but I think uh, at the end, unification was the goal, if I'm not wrong, or the data fabric was the goal for most companies.
Yeah, and so I'm very curious to see what will happen in 2024. Will modern data stack will resurface? The reason is, the inflation rate is going down in the US, and there is a question like, there is a speculation the interest rate will go down again. Uh, and will the consumer, the enterprise buyer behavior will change, that push the button to more modern data stack kind of approach.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it is, right. See, one of the things that has been happening, Anand, is cost pressures across the year, right? I think from the start of 2023 until now, up until now, we all that I think a lot of projects or architects have been discussing was how do you control cost? How do I control cost? Right, in whatever I'm doing. In on-prem world, it did not have to be about cost. It was only about performance. So it was easy. Now that people are on the cloud, they have to ensure that the cost control is centrally managed so that no unwanted person queries unwanted data. Because all they have to do is do a select star on top of the data on top of Snowflake for them to be penalized. If they have the right set of access, that query is going to run. So, yeah, irrespective of who the owner is, I think putting in those structure, putting in that principle so that you're able to prevent DLP, you're able to monitor how much of actual work they're doing and how is it impacting the business. I think the cost pressures are definitely felt, have been definitely felt across 2023, across the globe. Again, I'm not pinpointing any country in particular here. I think across the globe, there's been impact for a lot of people.
yeah. I don't know whether like economic recovery and the buyer behavior changes, and then
Totally.
you can
I think buyer behavior changes has been omnipresent across for me across the globe. Uh, One of the things that people are looking for as an answer is, hey, Microsoft is offering this. How different are you? And if your product is 40-50% good, then you don't have a chance to win against Microsoft because they're already in the count through their enterprise relationships. I think it's not a bad thing what they're doing some of the places here, but then it's how the customers are pushing everyone, right? I think FinOps is real. Uh, we need to ensure that the cost is contained at every step of what we do in the data processing, right? To ensure that there's still more budget left for all AI/Gen AI experimentation.
yeah. That's actually nicely segue to next, the one that we need to talk about, shifting focus and embracing cost optimization as a priority, which is what exactly you talked about.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's there, it's real. I think across next year, data engineers, data architects listening to this call, do share your feedback in terms of how do you think your projects are going, and are you facing this cost pressure as well? I think we want to hear from you, and if you would like to share your story, do drop in a comment. We want to see if your story can be public, and we would want you to join one of our future broadcasts to share your story as well. So make a comment, me and Anand would reach out to you and take it from there. Uh, which kind of segues into one final topic, Anand, in terms of before the last one is how do you see Databricks and Microsoft with their unified story? I think when we talk unified cost pressures, sometimes the answer is lying there as like, hey, Microsoft gives me everything or Databricks gives me everything. Thoughts on that?
I think yes. See, one of the important characteristics of data engineering is like we deal with a lot of data, like sensitive data. And and if you wanted to seamlessly integrate into your product experience, then if you're a SaaS provider or even a B2C company, you have to add those systems as a processor or co-processor that has to go through the whole sales cycle, that you have to justify why you have to use this tool to process your data. And all the cloud providers are by default partner with whatever the services, so that like it's easy for you to play around, introduce and iterate your architecture much faster, rather than you go and negotiate to a vendor and then trying to bring them in on board and try to go through the integration layer for that. So as from if I just put a my other architect cap in the other side of the table, I would typically prefer any services that has been offered out of the box by these cloud providers. Even though most of the product I hate, from all practical perspective, that is what driving my, the
Wonderful.
tools choices essentially.
I think we're storing more data than what we need, and we're storing multiple copies of data, which is where I would want a lot of people to optimize on. Which brings us to the last topic, definitely that we are going to discuss around streaming. I think that's a major focus area for the seaboard in terms of getting real-time data as close as possible for decision making. I think we have never felt that need more in the erstwhile architecture. I think the modern architecture people want a layer to behave as a real-time stack. What are you seeing, Anand, in your set of patch, in the customers and the vendors and partners that you work with?
I think Apache Flame over and over coming a lot. Partly because I think the Confluent occurred. The Fling, now they're offering a Fling as a service. Even though they have KSQL and all sort of KStream and all sort of competing product. Fling, I feel that stand test in time. Still it's hard to operate, all sort of operational issues there, but the amount of vendor support that available for Fling right now is pretty high compared to any other streaming solution that we kind of having it right now. So I'm
Correct.
saying, there are a lot of legitimate companies trying with the streaming system. They can claim that they are faster. There are a lot of proprietary tools are coming in, the streaming processing side of it.
Yeah.
But I believe from if you take like a larger community pool of support and then like a multiple vendors been doing one technology, I feel like a lot of brains behind Flink. I know that's why I kind of um, call it out like Apache Flink in the crimes, because um, every company that's starting with some kind of a stream processing underlying, or what I see in the market is like 80% of the companies saying that we are using Fling under the line to do certain things. So
Wonderful. I think you've shared some interesting pictures in your article as well, which kind of covers Beam. Uh, while Beam has not got its focus for the last couple of years, I think thanks to Spark, thanks to cloud migration, etc. Do you think Beam is going to come back? Apache Beam as a
hopeful for Beam. There's a interesting case study came from LinkedIn. They wrote about like how Apache Beam is kind of helping them, how they built the Samsa runner for them and all sort of a thing. But if you read this engineering blog, the amount of engineering effort they put it to make it work is pretty high. And only few companies only few companies has the problem, and only few companies can spend that much of engineering effort to do that. Um, I always skeptical about an abstract layer on top of an abstract layer. So what Beam is an abstract layer, and Spark, like let's say if you take our Spark RDD and data frame, like, it is an abstract layer.
Mhm.
Spark convert that into a Scala code, and like compile
Correct.
by code and then run it and all those things. And then you build another abstract layer on top of the data frames and whatever things are available. I'm
Got it.
always critical about like any tools building on top of abstraction or abstract purely because the second layer will change every time. The optimization can change every time.
Yeah,
The first immediate abstract layer will give you much more performance than the second layer. So as a data practitioner now, I have to learn two abstractions. I need to understand how two abstraction convert, you know, how Apache Beam model transpile into Spark and how Spark transpile into the execution plan and logical
yeah,
plan, physical plan. It's like too much.
yeah. And that's the whole promise of Beam, right? Writing a Spark code vis-a-vis a Spark streaming, structured streaming code was totally different. I think Beam had limitations a couple of years back. I think they kind of ironed out some of them and still working on more things to make it stable. Is my gut feel again. Don't have the full picture when it comes to the Apache Beam project, but hoping to see some innovations there. But like you said, let's see how Flink evolves as well, and how a lot of our customers uh, across the globe are leveraging Flink to meet their streaming infrastructure, streaming analytics use cases.
Yeah.
Right, that's pretty much what we wanted to discuss today. But any closing thoughts, Anand, from your side?
Yeah, I think 2024 is very exciting. I think a lot of few dynamics been changing. S3 expresses an interesting things. Any fundamental layer that is been changing. I'm talking about an abstract layers of an abstract layer. S3 is one layer of abstraction, and then you're building a lakehouse on top of it, and like so many abstract layers been built, and then we operate it on a larger layer.
Yeah,
Any changes in the underlying layer will significantly impact the immediate and then the next layer. 2024 is exciting for me is because um, the S3 Express, I'm curious how that's gonna change the other layers. And LLM, it's another fundamental layer, how that will enable to build additional layers. And so pretty exciting. I'm excited for 2024 and what are the changes will happen there.
yeah, totally. I'm waiting for the intelligent data cloud, intelligent data platform. I think we have built data platforms, dump yards, whatever you want to call that as. I think the power of LLMs, focus on AI projects would make that layer intelligent for us to drive actions on top of that. I think combine that with the power of humans, I think we would finally reach the pinnacle of data projects in my personal observation of the different trends, right? So looking forward to 2024, and if you're listening to this podcast during Christmas, Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season.
Oh yeah, happy Christmas and happy New Year.
Thank you, everyone.